Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Via Satellite Magazine technology webcast titled Unleashing the Power of Satellites for Global Goals, presented by SpaceBridge. My name is Jeffrey Hill, Executive Editor of Via Satellite and Chair of the Satellite Show. Thank you once again for being with us today. The United Nations developed these Sustainable Development Goals with an aim to significantly decrease and ultimately eliminate the impact of social, economic, and environmental inequalities within developing nations. So in total, these goals include 17 sub-targets and actions that serve as stepping stones on the way to achieving true global equity and access. During this webcast, we're going to learn how satellite connectivity can help nations achieve the Sustainable Development Goals as outlined by the United Nations by providing access to internet and communication services to improve social inclusion, access to education, access to remote and local healthcare, as well as contribute to the monitoring of important environmental indicators. We'll be joined by SpaceBridge Director of Product Line Management and Business Development, Mike DiPaolo, who will explain how satellite and other beneficial technologies are addressing global goals and the role that SpaceBridge, multipurpose hubs, and remotes play in this effort. And then Mike will share this presentation, and following that, we'll take questions from the audience. And I encourage all of you to participate and ask the questions you need to ask, and you can do so by moving over to the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your interface here, and you can ask your questions. We will address those questions at the end. I will facilitate the Q&A and ask your questions and keep you anonymous, so feel free to ask any questions you want, and we'll do that at the end. But please join us in this conversation. We have about 15, 20 minutes at the end to address questions. All that said, let's jump right into it. As I mentioned, our special guest today is Mike DiPaolo from SpaceBridge. Mike, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Jeff, and thank you very much for hosting this event. We have a lot of interesting material to cover. I hope that I tried to make it very pertinent and actually personal. I've intermingled the presentation with my personal experiences, and I hope so. And I hope in doing that to keep it very interesting for the audience.
Excellent. So just to introduce Mike here, Mike is a telecommunications specialist, cellular backhaul advocate, and advanced technology expert with over 30 years of experience in international sales and business development, as well as engineering and product management across military, telecommunications, and VSAT markets. Mike, once again, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. I'll now turn things over to you for your presentation.
Thank you. So, okay, transforming our world. The United Nations, the United Nations created 17 Sustainability Development Goals a number of years ago with three broad pillars to where it would improve the humanity for encompassing three broad pillars: economic, social, and environmental well-being. Now, these goals are not intended for just to be a template for impoverished countries or what we would call in the day third world countries. I don't know if we still use such terminology, but they're actual a goal that goes beyond borders. It's a goal that all nations actually have to embark upon individually or through partnerships. Even in Canada, where I'm from and where SpaceBridge is headquartered, is a highly developed nation, but it has its own internal objectives on how to achieve these three broad pillars, and more specifically, the 17 individual goals. And significant monies and time have been spent to embark upon these objectives. This is not cheap. This is actually, it's an investment in transforming our world for a better tomorrow. If we go down these goals, okay, we could see that the goals encompass no poverty, okay? Now, no poverty, the definition of which is all-encompassing, okay? Poverty isn't just a question of finance. It's a question of affordability, health and food security, physical safety, sense of belonging and social purpose. Okay, these are all aspects of poverty. And as you can see, each of the points that are raised here, which are no poverty, number two, zero hunger, three, good health, quality education, gender equality, clean water, sanitation, affordability and clean, decent work, and economic growth. These are all aspects that are basically spell out poverty. Okay, and so in raising the level of sustainability for the world, we can eliminate poverty over a period of time. Then, in terms of personal responsibility, pride in culture, okay, all these other aspects. There's making cities inclusive, sustained consumption and production patterns, responsible consumption and production, climate action. This is all, again, it all falls into the same functions of making it so that the land is here for the people today and also for the long-term survivability of our humanity. So conserving and sustaining the use of the oceans, taking action on climate changes, sustain management forests, combat desertification, halt and reverse land degradation, biodiversity loss. These are all critical things to, of course, are all intermixed with the need for climate control, et cetera, et cetera. And then just as important, promoting just and peaceful and inclusive societies. We know it on a personal basis. Many of us we hear it in the news all the time about social injustice, and so these are all things that have to be worked upon to basically make the world a better place. And basically, it's revitalizing the whole global partnership for sustained development. Now, the role for satellite. So if you, when going over that, many people could probably think, well, what does satellite have to do with this? But satellite has been used for many, many years in supporting these type of activities. Earth observation in 1986, the United Nations and the world at large both all recognized the benefits that were being brought about by Earth observation data. Earth observation, whether it's terrestrial, aerial, or space-based, is been invaluable across the board, and we see it every day in our satellite weather maps and in all types of communication that we're essentially bombarded with or actually addicted to. I know in Canada we're addicted to weather forecast, and so it is it is something that we look up at all times. How can it be an indispensable tool for sustained development? Well, first of all, it allows us to make informed decisions about the environment, natural resources, and infrastructure. In terms of natural disasters, it gives us an eye view of flooding and earthquakes. We saw, well, for those of us who live in North America, there was a Category 3 hurricane that hit Florida yesterday, and you could see on Google Map the level of flooding which occurred. And immediately insurance companies are able to basically go out and say, well, $9 billion of estimated losses. And so that's a commercial benefit to this type of thing. But in terms of, it gives also first responders invaluable information of how they can transport new infrastructure to get people help as quickly as possible. Irrigation, water, and land use management. Of course, these type of situations over here will result in flooding and raise disease levels as sewers back into the water systems, et cetera, et cetera. Again, it's all stuff that can be satellite could be used to basically support people, support and assist in making informed decisions. Finally, tracking population movements. Whenever there's a disaster of some type, and it reminds me of a disaster, the earthquakes in Haiti, where satellite was not only Earth observation was not only incredibly useful for helping people dimension the size of the earthquake, but also in tracking populations away from the main cities. And of course, that was supported by real-time data from the mobile operators as the population migrated in and out of functional cell areas. But again, satellite was 24-hour day tracking, and it was invaluable in those type of circumstances. Earth observation, GPS and IoT, again, making informed decisions about the environment, natural resources. You're able to overview your land masses. You're able to verify the biodiversity, the desert, how much of the land is arable, how much of the land is being lost over a period of time through excessive use. You can find drought. Where is the water going? Okay, so it all falls back into irrigation, water, and land use. This latter point is actually very important, because not only is Earth observation important, but you see the importance of GPS and IoT. I was working on a project where we were rolling out robotic farming in Brazil, which was supported, of course, via GPS for the location of the tractors. And satellite backhaul was being used for the LTE services, with an LTE radio deployed to cover a 20-kilometer range. The LTE, of course, was being used to provide IoT, which the IoT monitored moisture levels in soils, and additionally to control the robo-tractors while providing the right amount of fertilizer. The net savings to commercial and environmental was incredible. Because for the farmer and the environment, the net savings was a reduction in fossil fuel use, a reduction of water, since, of course, the moisture levels were being tracked, and reduction of fertilizer to levels which were just required by the soil, rather than just dumping a lot of fertilizer, of course, and the fertilizer itself washing away and poisoning other ecosystems. These are how you can use satellite technology in the farming industry, and with Earth observation, GPS, IoT, and some data services to basically ensure that we're doing the right things for the environment. Additionally, Earth observation is being increasingly used for monitoring environmental compliance and tracking. It's incredibly important to track these areas, and so that local and state and even or individual countries can start tackling these issues. There's a number of sites online where you can gather some information of this type. And over here, for example, we see that this amount. Oh, sorry, I missed a slide there. Sorry. And so here we're seeing that in this slide that we have a huge methane burst in an area in California. And this methane burst comes from a fuel and energy processing plant. And this is one of many in California, unfortunately. And of course, methane being a stronger contributor to the overall pollution than CO2 itself is a very dangerous thing. There's other elements, of course, that can be tracked, other atmospheric pollutants, and so it provides invaluable information for governments in defining what they have to do to reach a low CO2 carbon, a low CO2 concentration by 2030, the overall objectives of course, the world at large. And this year, unfortunately, we've all experienced incredible impact from forest fires. For those of you who have been involved, who watch the news, we have had Canadian forest fires ongoing for many months, and such to the point where the smoke and trails of smoke have been observed over satellite to go all the way up to parts of Europe, and as the winds blew the smoke and particles around. So, of course, these are Earth observation, GPS. Again, IoT is incredibly important for tracking the threats to the health of people, and in many cases, and more recently, in a part of Canada called Yellowknife, they've actually had to evacuate cities based on what they were seeing in terms of forest fire threats. Another interesting thing about this is that in Canada, some innovative companies have come out and started producing fire detection equipment, which is IoT based, which can be littered across forests and hung on trees, for example, with 10 to 15 year lives on batteries, and able to be connected over long range LTE or 5G services. And also over satellite for those areas which are too remote to use such LTE services. But it's increasingly going to be deployed across Canada and other areas. Australia has already signed on to this. But it's, again, IoT devices running off LTE and LTE over satellite to basically contribute to this as part of the fight against forest fires. Now, that's all very interesting things, and I've had some experience in those types of environments. But of course, my background touches more along the data lines. And what's one of the most important things to me is distance education and providing education. Actually, I remember one of my earliest experiences, and it's when I took the most greatest sense of personal accomplishment, and was when dealing with satellite when I was a younger engineer, was setting up one such distance education network between University of Hawaii and islands of Micronesia. Aside from, of course, being in Hawaii, which is always great, I've had a pleasure of meeting and engaging with highly motivated people on those islands and in the universities. So this was my first real experience in distant education. I realized how valued it was by the recipients, and so it's something that can never be undermined. It's a very important part of the satellite benefits that we can provide, and it's also, of course, a big contributor to the sustainability goals. So, what have we seen and learned in the last couple of years? Well, COVID definitely taught us something. COVID basically taught us the importance of distance education, even though distance may just be your neighborhood over a broadband connection. But the importance of that is that the amount of millions and millions of hours of televised education is available, and these services are now able to be broadcast to other areas. And so it's my hope, of course, that these types of videos will become available in the long run and provided to even more distant areas over satellite communications in an ongoing education channels type thing. Satellites have also been used in professional development opportunities for teachers and other educators, and collaboration. Satellites can facilitate the collaboration between the educators, researchers, and students from different countries, regions, and background. As I mentioned, the work in Micronesia was to interconnect universities, and part of the mandate of that was actually to train the educators to push out an even better quality of education toward the children of Micronesia. So it was incredibly great program to be involved in. Another benefit, of course, that and this, I think that the second thing that people think about when they think about satellite communications is that emergency communications. It's clear that for the ubiquitous nature and broad coverage of satellite has always been valued for supporting connectivity, especially in areas where there's no service, or in the case of emergencies, earthquakes, flooding, etc., where the ground infrastructure has been disrupted. So again, in my earliest experiences, I was working on projects such as this, setting up emergency deployable command-to-pause infrastructure vehicles in regions as diverse as the United States, where we set up such vehicles for Verizon, all the way to China, where participated in a program where we set up comm on the pause. Back in the day, we used to call them cows, cellular on wheels, in China, in order to support restoring the cellular networks after earthquakes and floods, et cetera, et cetera. And in this photograph above, I believe it's Haiti after one of the catastrophic earthquakes, and you see that even there, satellite has become a most important way of communicating. And satellite services can really be tailored today. There's so many different options of connectivity. In the past, it was always just considered basic IP traffic, and maybe a little bit of voice over IP. But today, it's there's no end to the type of services that you can offer. There's Wi-Fi, private LTE, or even public LTE network support, and even video services, and of course DSNG. So again, satellite providing necessary communication infrastructure where and when it's needed. Banking is also an important aspect of the entire transformation. Access to financing is one of the great equalizers of society. The ability to provide transactional financial services is essential to help people pursue education, live healthier, finance homes, start businesses, whether it be in the industrialized world, or even in what we refer to as third world. Banking services are especially important in developing regions, with the large agricultural economies. These are traditionally cash-based societies, but it's important to introduce the functions of credit, secure savings to help farmers and workers alike. So satellite provides remote rural branch connectivity, either as a backup link or as a primary link. And in places such as, we've also seen, of course, mobile branches via VSATCom on the pause. I've actually been involved in projects in Indonesia where we rolled out such things, and these mobile branches would run around to rural villages and stopping off at an hour or 2 hours at a time with video sessions so that the people could actually speak to live support personnel as if they had issues with their banking. So it's incredible what the level of stuff that can be done. Over here, and of course, customers with banking apps. In my most recent vacation, I had the privilege of going on a Kenyan safari. And I actually had the pleasure of connecting up with Safaricom's M-Pesa service, which was incredible. It allowed me to pay for local services to individuals or small businesses, which would not normally support credit card transactions, which I think is the preferred means of transaction for Westerners. Without carrying cash. Without the need to carry cash, you just carry your cell phone and you can deal with almost anything with an M-Pesa app. And it's even in the most remotest parts of the national parks, I was able to pay for services over the Safaricom's LTE service, which was all over satellite as well. So it was absolutely incredible experience to be able to have a banking app operating in the middle of the Serengeti with absolutely no problems at all. So the next aspect is health, of course. So health plays an essential role. Satellite plays an essential role in the delivery of essential services: healthcare, education, communication, financial. But the most important role is improving the inclusivity and education for the health practitioners and rural citizens. And this is an example over here. This village, even though it's as close to an urban center as 300 kilometers, it's still too far out for them to support over traditional terrestrial network. Yes, they may have perhaps some 2G or 3G services, but at such oversubscribed links that they can't get their applications to run properly. And in this particular case, these this health center was provided with a satellite connection, and in doing so, they enabled them to get all the services that they needed and access the cloud connectivity to register residents of the villages and bring them into the national registry for health services. So it's an important function for the inclusivity of the citizens, for ensuring that they have access to education. There's on the same amount of bandwidth, training is being provided for the nurses and doctors, or even peer-to-peer doctor collaboration when dealing with particular cases. So these are everyday occurrences in all parts of the world. Social inclusion. Well, social inclusion is ever important. We're virtual global citizens, and social networking has brought people together in ways that, quite honestly, I would never have envisioned 20 years ago. So far, in much of my presentation, I highlight work that's being done in countries Kenya, Nigeria, Haiti, but I just want to highlight again that every country is involved in this. Even Canada and United States suffer from similar connectivity issues. Canada responded to the global goals by calling for new service definitions for all Canadians. Those new service definitions included a new definition of poverty, and one such aspect of poverty was lack of access to social inclusion. So one service that was launched from the Canadian government, and I have to continue reiterating these services are not cheap, but they're not intended to be cheap because they are for the benefit of mankind. Is the service that was launched by the Canadian government is a broadband connectivity initiative, which calls for essentially a minimum of 25 megabits connectivity anywhere in Canada for all Canadian citizens. So in the Canadian North, social inclusion is made possible by satellite service delivery to Canada's Nunavut territory. There are some 25 northern communities, roughly 60,000 people. And over that area, there's 15 plus gigabits of traffic, which are going over GEO to meet their insatiable demands for service. Today, there's already new services which are being planned and which will be rolled out in the subsequent years, which will be LEO based. And this is again to bridge the digital divide between the urbans and the ultra rurals. The access to low latency communication will be a game changer for them, as right now community to community communications are double hop over satellite, which of course is acceptable if you have no choice, but is not really a pleasant experience. With LEO, even though it'll be dual hops, it'll still provide acceptable latency, and it'll be equivalent, much better than what they are able to have today. And again, all of this is sponsored and provided by subsidies by the Canadian government to provide this type of initiative, this broadband connectivity initiative. As I mentioned, it's inexpensive. Canada has allocated billions of dollars to this, and Canada has invested significantly in the other attributes as well, social inclusion, education, resource, water management, etc. Now, those are the prime ones that I chose to deal with. They're the ones that I've felt were most closely important to myself. They were the most closely relevant to the ones I've had personal experiences with. I've been involved in multiple projects in all of these, so I thought that it would be relevant for people to know them, and also relevant points for question and answers later on. Now, though, I would like to introduce our ASAT system. Now, SpaceBridge is a provider of satellite ground equipment for around the world. We've deployed some 200 hubs around the world, hundreds of thousands of terminals based across different types of satellite, whether they be traditional satellite or even HTS. All our products are developed in Canada. We have a very strong focus in Canada. And of course, we provide our solutions have been there to provide star, mesh, star and star, hybrid network topologies, etc. So, and in one platform, it's a multi-service platform which can support multiple beams, multiple applications, including IoT, comm on the pause, cellular backhaul, et cetera, et cetera. So it impacts our platform was designed to actually provide the data connectivity aspects of the different points that I try to describe, be it education, emergency communication, banking, health, and even social inclusion. Basically, our platform is a perfect platform for all of those, and also with the IoT aspect is also a great function for even supporting distant IoT over for environmental sensing. It's one of our greatest benefits is, of course, our technology has great monitoring capabilities, and they're able to really identify any issues anywhere in the network in very quick time. And in real time, you could actually see how the network is performing, how each site is performing, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in order to, of course, have this type of solution, you have to have the necessary technology. And the gateway technology that we provide is leading edge. We have our technology is all based on DVB-RCS2 standards that were, of course, international standards released a number of years ago. And we have our burst demodulator, which has an industry-leading capability of 128 megasymbol of support, up to 650 megabits of user traffic per demodulator. And with that 128 megabits support, you can cover large transponder or large capacity return links. The greatest value of a gateway is the return link technology it utilizes. And in our case, we have what we call our RCS2 provides a low overhead, very highly efficient and spectrally efficient solution. With that, we support spread spectrum to the BPSK all the way to 64 QAM waveforms to provide the widest connectivity options within the single platform. And of course, our encapsulation. Oh, sorry, this is a little bit on the technical side, but it's a very low overhead traffic for both layer 2 and layer 3. Of course, it's backed up with S2X outbounds, which is the best performance that you can get on your forward links. And again, low overhead encapsulation from those services, from that service. Backing everything is our access technology. We have our architecture. In our architecture, we support geographic redundancy, adaptive access. A feature called Wave Switch which is our ability to go from standard TDMA to SCPC links in a hitless manner on a 26.5 millisecond basis. So it provides very high low latency capabilities to support all types of mission critical type data environments. Supporting up to 20,000 VSATs in the N+N redundancy system, and of course all the different architectures, including mesh. We support full layer 2 and layer 3. QoS is provided and mapped accordingly. Performance enhancement is provided natively in our product with also payload and header compression. So to maximize the throughput of the next network and minimize the overhead of the network. And of course, our management is second to none. It provides FCAPS, VNO, virtual network operator support, and external BSS and OSS support. At the terminal side, we provide a range of terminals. We have a consumer broadband terminal, which is also which is also useful for IoT or SCADA applications. We have an enterprise grade modem, which can achieve 100 megabits and 15 megabits upload. It supports it's a rack mounted unit, and it supports additional capabilities, of course not in the broadband terminal, such as higher return lengths and more throughput. We also have a 7780, which is ideal for enterprise or cellular backhaul. It focuses on features which optimize what's called layer 2 or cellular backhaul, where basically in this we provide, it's ideal for private enterprise connectivity. It's also ideal for cellular backhaul in that it provides acceleration and bandwidth reduction for services such as LTE and 5G. And finally, of course, we have a wideband modem, which is an S2X based modem, capable of supporting total speed of 1.4 gigs, 720 megabits per transmit and receive. And it's ideally suited for high capacity trunking applications. So to move on. So in conclusion, basically, I'd like to highlight that in many of our deployments, we have been supporting Global Goals Initiative, supporting enterprise government organizations to bring forward these important type of services and data connectivity options, be it from in Indonesia, where we're providing these remote banking solutions and remote education. And in the Arctic, where we're working on projects to provide Arctic internet connectivity for Arctic locations at extreme high latitudes. Additionally, in Canada, for even the workers at remote mines, we're providing entertainment, internet, and social connectivity for miners, while providing IoT and environmental sensing for the safety of the miners. And in places like Angola, and actually as also in places like Venezuela, we've deployed wide-ranging, multi-thousand site networks for school connectivity. Again, providing internet and providing services for management and training purposes for all the schools, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to highlight again that SpaceBridge has been involved in these type of initiatives in the past, and our product is ideally suited for this type of environment, especially the data connectivity needs. And so we should, if your government or your enterprise has a plan moving forward on supporting the sustainability goals, the global goals, then you should consider SpaceBridge as a potential suitor for providing these type of solutions. And that is the end.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing that with us. For those of you who are in the audience, if you go to the handouts tab, you can see, you can download the handout. It has Mike's contact information here. We'll leave this slide up just so you have it here. And also, if you want to ask questions, we have some time for Q&A. You can do that by submitting questions through the Q&A tab, which is right next to handouts. So once you download the handout, go to the Q&A section. Before we jump into questions, Mike, just a couple of things. You know, I think you've highlighted at the beginning that these UN Sustainable Development Goals are trying to standardize what we view as the definition of poverty, right? Because, you know, in the United Nations, we use these terms like developing nations or emerging nations or third world, and they're based on, you know, subjective viewpoints of what, you know, what are we, countries not in the G20, countries in the G20, right? What is the divide? And so what I think you've been saying here is what's really exciting is that in this kind of standardized view of what is poverty, there are a lot of challenges that satellites can solve very well. And so what my first question to you is like, how you listed some examples here at the end. How has satellite served you as a ground systems company, the satellites themselves, in pursuing these worthwhile goals, like in highlighting some of the examples you had here at the end?
Oh, absolutely. It's in the examples that I highlighted at the end. How have the satellite operators or how have governments and or enterprises been involved?
Sure. If you want, let's cover all of that. How have the operators and government and how have they been working with you to solve these problems?
Well, in the case of Indonesia, for example, the enterprise, of course, is a primary driver of this. And this is actually, we're very proud of what we're doing in Indonesia. As it's actually a shared revenue hub, which is one of our business models. It's a shared revenue hub in which we provide the hub know-how and equipment, and the in-country partner is actually responsible for selling services and also deploying the remote sites and et cetera, et cetera. So in that respect, we're partners in all of these type of deals or these solution delivery. So while the enterprise may find remote banking, and of course in Indonesia, of course, an island-based country with hundreds and hundreds of islands, it's an invaluable thing. So we provide the ground equipment, and we're proud to basically participate in these types of things, especially when it comes to remote education. For the Arctic, it's an especially interesting project for us. We're using our technology, as I mentioned. We have quite a range of return link waveforms that we can choose from, ranging from spread spectrum, BPSK, all the way to 64 QAM. And the idea of operating at very high latitudes with the severe look angles to the geo satellites is very challenging. And so right now it's a pilot project that we're running on, and we hope that we're hoping that it could actually turn out to become something significant for the company.
Yeah. Of course. In your perspective, from your perspective, what has been the best outcome of the services you've rendered in these specific areas so far?
As I mentioned, the best outcome is I go back to my experience with Micronesia. It was just an absolute wonderful experience to see the joy and the happiness of the people collaborating with peers in other countries. Not only so Micronesia connected up to Hawaii, but Hawaii also connected up to university peers within continental USA to host multi-university sessions. It was absolutely incredible to see the collaboration and the great intentions of everybody involved. It's very rewarding when people get to use our technology and you see that it has an immediate impact on them. Mm-hmm. So that's I think was my best experience.
Okay, great. Question from the audience here. Mike, how do you see 5G convergence of non-terrestrial networks and 5G terrestrial networks being deployed and used to meet the global goals?
I think that's a very good question. And I thank whoever asked that question, because I think it has a very, very big future impact of how will that impact everything? There is a strong move. We all see it. There's a strong move toward LEO technologies. The definition of services that are the services that are available today for supporting LTE data from a LEO solution is relatively low bandwidth. But there's work being ongoing in the 3GPP release 19, and I think other works going forward to improve that data yield, that data throughput yield. I'm not sure if it's going to reach the objective of 25 megabits per session. I don't know the direction that it's going in, but I'm very optimistic about that being a big contributor to leveling the playing field of all global citizens and giving them access to universal data and services.
Okay, and I think this might be a follow-up to that question. Are SpaceBridge considering adapting their hub to provide 5G end-to-end waveforms, moving away from DVB-RC2 or RCS2, or supporting 5G backhaul only?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there's two different approaches that we're taking. The first approach is DVB-RCS2. In the 3GPP and in the 5G environment, they create interworking functions so that non-native 4G or 5G elements can talk to a 5G core. We're trying to work on a method where our equipment could actually participate in this interworking function with 5G cores. So that will tackle part of the problem, okay, of basically rendering all services, all satellite services managed from a 5G core. But more to the point, the NTN waveforms. The NTN waveforms, I don't think that we'll ever see them on GEO. I think that very, very much LEO is the best place for them. But when it comes to GEO environment, I don't really believe that there's room for NTN waveforms on that type of platform. I could be wrong. Again, I'm not completely up to date on how they're planning on doing what waveforms they've selected. But that's my current position. When I know more, I'll let you guys know.
No worries. Next question is, what is your best estimate for actual service for the satellite direct to an unmodified handset or IoT device? And what price for the basic?
Well, if you're involved in the marketing, some people say it's already available, right? But the thing is, and I don't believe that it's not available. I think that it's very limited in what it can do today. I just have to go back to the orthogonal frequency division, multiplexing, and all the licensing issues, and all these other, the technology is there to do things, but it's not necessarily that the environment is there to do things. So it's like there's business case concerns in providing that type of service. I think that there's I think that that will be for me the first release of NTN. It'll be direct to unmodified handset, or even better, it would be direct to a for example, an IoT device without. For me, sorry, I just want to make one point. For me, the connectivity to the handset is less important than the connectivity to an IoT device or a data carrying device. Okay, because the handset is one thing, but for a service to be rendered, you want to do an IoT or a data type service. I think that's far more important than the handset. And with that, you could stand a little bit of modification.
Okay, next question here is, and this is a good one because there's a few questions here that touch on resources and costs, right, to obtain these technologies, right? The question is, not all of these countries have unlimited resources. How do they think about the costs associated with leveraging this technology? Is it sometimes still too expensive despite the benefits? And I think there's a couple ways we can answer it. First, we can compare it with how would you achieve these same goals with another connectivity method, like building your own infrastructure, all that, or we could just talk about it as an investment, as a national investment, right? Mm-hmm. Is satellite technology still inaccessible at this level?
I would say yes and no. One of my experiences, and I raised a point during the session, was that I was involved in this Brazilian robo farming experiment. Well, it was a demo, but it actually worked fantastically. And the farmer in that case bore the cost of the deployment. And, when you're dealing with farms of that size, I guess he could afford to do it, especially considering CapEx investment of $100,000 for a satellite and his LTE versus $2 million for his tractor type thing, you know? So there's a way of building these things so that way it can be done by enterprise, such as in this case, a farmer, but it doesn't only have to be considered people tend to look for universal service obligation as a way of establishing connectivity, be it LTE over satellite or anywhere else. But you could actually look at other services. Like if I go back to this farming example, and I'll say that the Ministry of Agriculture had a big benefit from that experiment. Okay, so should the ministries of agriculture not be also contributing to this? Instead of just USO, should the ministries of education not be contributing to this instead of just USO? It should become part of the budget from every single ministries and every single government across the board, because delivering the service is actually an enabler for multiple things. Don't just look at the one aspect, okay, of throwing bandwidth out there to provide internet, but look at the whole benefit that it provides, and then different levels of government can contribute in different ways, as per how the benefit is shared and spread.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and also brings up another point that I think it's really important to understand. It's something I've learned in the industry over being part of it for 15 years. Is cost is like one element to it, and in a lot of ways, just the pure cost of the system isn't in most cases is not the main challenge. The main challenge is getting all of that coordination you just talked about. Yeah. Because to install these systems, right, you need participation from not just several different areas of the government, but you need participation in some cases from enterprise, and then you need the installation. So there's a lot. There's a lot of things involved. More, it's not just money, right? Money is one part of it, is one boundary, but I think what's really changed is that the coordination part of it is becoming a bit easier because people are going to get access to the training they need, right? The expertise they need. Some people don't even know these solutions are out there, right? So then there's also the communication challenge. But I think we as an industry, and I'm just throwing this out there, we need to stop thinking of it of just cost as the boundary, because I feel the hard costs associated with it are among the challenges, and sometimes the easiest, because they're just, do we have the money to buy it? Yes, we do. Then what, right? What do you do with it then? So I think that's a good as we're trying to standardize the definition of poverty, we should also talk about what are the challenges really to bringing nations out of poverty.
Yeah, it's exactly that. The governments have to start looking at the benefits versus just the cost, and the benefits are many times contribute many times more to the gross domestic product and growth of a nation than the cost of the solution. That's by far.
Next question here is, who or what nation owns the satellite fleet used by SpaceBridge? Is it an all-GEO fleet? Is SpaceBridge a small sat LEO launcher? They're ground systems provider, but explain how you work with operators.
Yeah, as ground equipment providers, we work with any GEO type satellite, so basically we work with customers to secure bandwidth on different type satellites, be it Arabsat, Eutelsat, or Intelsat, or any of the many sats, and then we provide we're able to deploy our products and utilize the bandwidth to the maximum efficiency.
Excellent. Well, it looks like we are just right here at the end of the hour. Mike, is there anything you want to just you want to outline the future of what SpaceBridge is going to be doing over the next few years toward these goals?
Actually, I want to make a small comment and I'm reading through some of the questions, and I'm sorry that I used the word third world. It's actually, I was scrambling for a word and my mind went blank. It's because I don't like the word. I don't like the word because I do prefer developing nations or we're as I mentioned, we're all global citizens today, right? It's a question of I used a terminology I didn't feel comfortable with, and I hope I didn't give offense to people because it was not the intent. Because a lot of people work in a lot of people who are attending this, I'm sure, are from other nations other than the G5, G20s, whatever. And so I didn't mean to provide any offense to anybody.
No, I think it illustrates just the point of what we're talking about. We're trying to standardize the definition of what it is to be in poverty, and I think what we're seeing here is that these sort of boundaries that we put, developing, undeveloped, emerging, third world, are based on these outdated subjective viewpoints.
Exactly.
Whereas, and what should be exciting to our industry is that there's so much in this definition of poverty that can be solved by connectivity, and we have the key to solve a lot of these challenges, so that we don't have to think of nations as like emerging. We could literally say in a lot of these cases, some of these don't have the infrastructure. They're disconnected from the rest of the world, and just that in itself is a separation. So I mean, it's good that we're talking about this, because this is part of the purpose here of coming up with these sustainability goals. But Mike, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. This is a very important conversation. I'm glad we're having it. For the rest of you in the audience, if we didn't get a chance to answer your question, I just thought it might be better if Mike addresses those questions offline to you. But thank you so much to SpaceBridge for putting this together. Mike, any final words you want to leave us with before we sign off?
We got 2 minutes. Okay. Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for their questions as well. It was really a lot of really smart questions over there. A lot of great comments I see on the Q&A side. I appreciate everybody's participation, and if you have any questions or if you wish to speak to me directly, I think that my contacts are going to be provided after this meeting. So please feel free to contact me directly. And that's it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Once again, my name is Jeffrey Hill, Executive Editor of Via Satellite, Chair of the Satellite Show. Thank you so much for being with us. And we'll see you for our next technology webcast, which will be up on the viasatellite.com website very soon. So thank you all.
Thank you.